Visible with liberty and justice for all.
Public input? And forthcoming then the review of the November 15th minutes. Anybody see anything that jumped out at them?
I didn't.
Have a motion then?
I make the motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? One abstention?
No, I said aye.
No, you have to abstain, you weren't there.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, then.
Yep, okay.
Don't worry.
Heart's in the right place.
Okay, moving on. Chairman's comments. First of all, I'd like to introduce Dave Dauphiné to folks who may not know Dave. Dave owns the general store, and he was gracious enough to pick up the slack when Penny left our group. And we welcome him, thank him very much for joining. Next thing is that our next meeting, is going to be held at the big meeting room at the library, because we have the CIP folks coming in to start the meeting, and there's considerably more room there to work than there is in here, and it's a lot better acoustics than the townhouse. Right. And the other thing is that there was a new roster of members handed out this evening, and Chris pointed out to me her phone number is not 0474, it's 847. So we want to make a change on that.
But you don't have to call me, it's okay.
I just hit Chris. Comes right through.
Tink, tink.
Okay. And with that, we'll move on. First meeting, first line tonight is the cemetery.
Oh, okay. 2 weeks. Presently the chair of the cemetery trustees. We're asking for the same budget as last year. $29,961. I don't know, why that $1 is there, but it happens. The budget shows that we overspent, but we actually didn't overspend. A payment was made last year at this time that the payee didn't cash the check until 2022.
Oh, this is a section line item?
No.
No, the maintenance
it's a
and
maintenance.
appropriation.
Oh, sorry, not maintenance.
Yeah, they didn't cash the check until January or February, so it got processed for 2022 instead of 2021.
Okay.
They used to keep the accounts open for 6 weeks after the end of
We
the year
still
for that
do.
stuff. So I don't know, it's
came in after that.
kind of odd, but anyway. The big items that we've been working on is upgrading the cemetery out back here with more fertilizing and weed control and pest control, and we spent almost $25,000 in the last 2 years on it. And we were told this fall that we needed to basically do that 2-year project every year if we really wanted it to be super duper. We get constant complaints, and I'm sure the selectmen do also, about the condition of the cemetery, but how much do people wanna spend?
Out of curiosity, when somebody buys a plot,
Mm-hmm.
okay, are they buying a plot and then paying a fee for perpetual care, or it's just the price of the plot?
Just the price of the plot.
Okay.
It's the plot, yes.
The old days, they did pay for perpetual care, and that money is in trust funds that we can't spend right now. Until we get a full survey done of the entire cemetery and determine how big every plot is so that we can prorate the price of maintenance of the plot. and apply it appropriately to the interest.
It's a convoluted,
It's insane, so we haven't been able to spend it because we haven't been able to figure it out.
and there's been, and I'm just gonna interject, there's been no, helpful interaction with any appropriate authorities, because what has happened is, they say, come up with a reasonable matrix. Wow. And you can only use the interest on each and every plot depending upon the purchase. So,
Right.
you know, if somebody bought a plot in 1985, their purchase price is gonna be completely different, thereby their interest is gonna be completely different. There
Also,
has
It
been.
goes back to what they paid for it.
Oh, it goes
Yes.
all the way back. We're talking all the way back. So now there has been an expendable trust created, but we've still got, they still have this, and the only reason why I know more, a little bit more probably is because I'm the trustee of the trust funds, and this comes up. And it's a huge task. And like I said, some of the other towns in the state have come up with these very big matrices, but, you know, Tuftonboro has to do that, but prior to doing that, that account stays as it is. The expendable trust is being utilized appropriately.
Right,
So you couldn't just take, I'm sorry, you just couldn't take the total number of plots?
Oh, no,
and
no,
divide by,
no,
of course not, that would
no,
make too
that'd
much
be too
sense.
simple.
So when you go through, I know, cause I was on a trust board before, on a prep school, where we dealt with this issue on designated gifts to the endowment. It's a similar issue, cause it's basically a designated gift. You're able to draw like 3% or a percentage of the principal of that to fund the,
Can't. Interest only. Interest only is only able to be spent in this particular trust account. Other accounts are different, but that's the rules on this particular trust account.
I think you can get that changed. We went through the same issue before. I think it seems to me that something that, listen, I think this is probably a selectman issue, not a budget committee issue.
It's a trustee's issue.
Yeah, well, I'd love to pass the buck.
Familiarize yourself with RSA 289 and you'll find out whose issue it is.
Sue, if that ever got unraveled, is there enough money in the trust fund to do the perpetual care?
No, well, probably not. It depends to what degree you do it. You know, if you want this to look like a city cemetery,
Well, let me
no,
rephrase the
there's
question.
not enough.
Is there enough money in the trust fund to bring it up to the same standard that you have brought it up to with the previous 2 years that you've had extra money? No.
How big is the trust fund, do you know, the dollars?
Right off the top of my head, no, I'm not the treasurer, I'm just the chair, I don't handle the money. That would be Pete.
I wonder how much it is, do you have any
Well,
idea?
but like I said, the thing about it is though, it's because there's so many different price points, and there's so many, like, you know, as Sue said, that, you know, plots were one size, now they're a different size, you have to, you know,
You have to
And
prorate it.
you have to prorate it. It is doable, but you have to have somebody that's gonna be able to delegate a pretty good chunk of time to get that, to that point.
I move.
You can talk to Sue right there, Dave.
So, just to move on to a different subject, I noticed you're starting to work on the bridge down at, North Country Village on 109A.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that gonna affect the work you did in,
better not.
It shouldn't, they're just putting Jersey barriers up.
I saw that, but that
Yep.
kinda leads me to believe that they're gonna do some work. They're just gonna leave the Jersey barriers there.
What I've heard that the Jersey barriers are gonna stay there for an undetermined amount of time.
You would hope that whatever they do is gonna be an improvement to the zero control they have over drainage now.
Okay, thanks.
Dave,
So-
you can go ahead and talk, Sue and Dave get together, cause he said something about creating that matrix, so maybe you could join one of your cemetery.
Yeah, he's not doing anything.
boards.
Sitting down
He's
there at
got
the
nothing
general
else to do.
store, Woodlands, thumbs.
Yep.
Well, Peter Slivsky
Mhm.
on the trustees and the trust fund has been talking with the investment company.
Yes, we have.
And,
We got nothing.
You got nothing?
We got nothing. No, they came back and said, yeah, no, they did get back to us and
We
it was
did
not
use,
helpful.
we did use some perpetual care money, and they did, figure out some stuff for us.
Yeah, a little bit, but not on that
Not
big,
the whole big scale.
no, she did get back to us.
Well, you have to go
Thank
back
you.
and figure out how much perpetual care money used in the past. I mean, I know there's a lot out there with relatives that I have that dates back into the early part of the 20th century.
Right,
So they bought that lot and paid for it. So supposedly some money went into a perpetual
Well,
care account. Or maybe
they're
not.
all different. Back in the early days, they charged a perpetual care fee every year. And someone would go out and put markers out there that said perpetual care. Got a whole box of them at the Historical Society. Every year they'd mark who had paid for perpetual care that year. And now those were the plots that got moved.
Now they're at the Historical Society.
And the amounts that they paid are drastically different. They go from $50 to $350 and everything in between and around and about.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
The bottom line here is $225,000 sitting in those trust accounts, looks like from here.
The
And so-
expendable and the perpetual, no,
Yeah, I'm
there's
just
two.
like, I know I'm looking at total cemetery,
Yeah,
so there's
Yeah.
perpetual care in there, which is 190, total perpetual care is 196,000. And, yeah, I don't know.
Other questions, Sue, do you still have end of the year expenses coming in?
I don't think so. There might be a couple $100 for, corner markers.
Well, the only reason I ask is I'm looking at now with the 2022 expended on the old cemetery restoration. And you only spent 2,000 out of the 12,000 budgeted.
Yes, that's correct, because the guy defaulted on the contract.
mhm.
So we're, renegotiating a contract. We were negotiating a contract with a new contractor.
Okay.
And, that's gonna take up everything we've got.
Don't have anything.
Okay. Other questions for Sue?
Do you have something you want to add?
No? Not yet, anyway.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend, I'd like to motion that we accept, line item 4195 in the amount of $29,961.
Moved, do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and second, is there any further discussion? Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, both. Here.
Thank you.
Moving on, police department. Want to come a little closer, chief, or?
I'll sit here. I'm not gonna stay and listen.
Well, you can if you want to.
Thank you.
Any highlights you want to go over with us, chief?
Well, one concern I have is obviously fuel costs. We're already over on that line and we still have, I believe, 2 months of payments left this year. I know gas is going down, but I don't know where it's gonna be next year. I looked into, one of the questions that comes up is, what do we pay and how much is it? So I looked at it, and it's basically, we're paying about, the last deliveries in October, were about $4.40 a gallon. Now, I thought, that seems high, because we can get a lot cheaper other places. And I thought it was mid-grade, I thought it was, and I thought maybe they left the tax in it, because we're exempt from the road tax. Nope, it's 87 octane without the road tax, just because we get it delivered, it costs that much. Now our tank, because of the situation of our tank, we have a limited my understanding is only one place that will deliver to us, because we don't have vapor recovery, we don't have a cement pad, some other things that we don't have. So I did look into other options, and none of them are great. It's about $1 a gallon cheaper for the state pumps, but we'd have to go to Tamworth or Ospey during certain hours. We can get into the Ospey state pumps. But if you figure our time and gas to get to those pumps, we'd probably eat up most, if not all, of the savings we would have. So I did, and I looked at other options like getting a card, a fuel card, because we can go to any gas station, right? But they have such a narrow window for payment. In other words, when they send the bill out, you got 7 days to pay it, or there's a late fee. And the problem is we don't get by the time I get the bill, we turn it in to get paid, and the selectmen have a chance to review it, the process could put us into late fee charges, which again would eat up any savings. So we're pretty much, I don't see us having an option but to stick with what we got, but I did look into ways to try and save money on that. That's, a lot of the costs going up are due to largely salary driven. The COLA that the selectmen approved had, that's what's worked into the budget. There was a couple other minor tweaks in there. I did include a few hours, if I could get a part-time officer to help out. And I did, have a step in there if we make a change in some of the alignment of the officers, but it would be, both of those were relatively small numbers.
Are you looking for like a permanent part-time officer?
It would be part-time as needed, so it's not many hours.
Okay, because, I look at, for example, I looked at the uniform line item, last year was 3,000, this year is 6,000.
And that was one of the parts was.
And I didn't know whether you were equipping a,
That's why it was up higher, but we didn't hire anybody yet to fill that, so. But that's, yes, that's what I was looking to add. I think I put like 200 hours in or something, which is not much. But it's just to help us out off and on during the summer, if you will, as needed.
So is it's hard to talk to you.
That's right.
Sorry, no. So the question, the overall head count here, obviously you're here last year and for the budget, right? But the officer's salary, is there a change in head count there?
Just, I think, I have to look it up there. I think I put. Of course I did this. I think I did it with, so there's, I did a few, at 400 hours of part-time, is what I had put in there, at obviously one of the lowest rates of the officers. So, that's in there.
So that's so there's basically, if I take the 224 from last year, no, from the budget, sorry, I didn't mean from last year, from the budget, and I
Yeah.
just, the 7.3% COLA increase plus 400 hours
Yes,
of incremental,
yeah,
okay,
that's about 11,000 is for the part-time officer.
okay.
It's 29 grand all over.
Going back to 2017, what was the last officer that we had added? It's 2017, just going back to the numbers historically.
When was the last time we added an officer?
Full-time officer.
It must be 20 some odd years ago.
Okay.
When I came here, there were 3 full-time and 1 part-time who was working a couple shifts a week. About a year later, 2 years later, we went to added 1. Maybe it was 3 years later, so it's probably been about 20 years since we've added anybody.
So nothing since 2017, okay.
Huh?
Nothing since 2017.
Oh, certainly not, no. No, it was probably around 2002, 2003, I think, when we added a 4th position. Somebody was part-time, went full-time. That's kind of what happened.
Thank you.
So one of the, this is when you have too much time in your hands, but I went back to the 2021, 22 2022, this book here, and looked at the budget, the numbers in here are not the same as the 2021 numbers in here in a lot of places. So for instance, if I look at 2021, for the police department, it was 398 in one place here, and it's 404 in another place, versus the 422 or 423. That's,
Is it a line item you're looking at that's
yeah, it's
different?
a line. I'm looking at the 4210 account.
Right, but there's a whole bunch of them. I mean, is it the police officer salary?
It's the same thing that adds up to the,
Grand total.
yeah.
The grand total.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the 404 here, if I look at the appropriations, of 457, the budget,
Mhm.
that agrees for this year, but the prior year number doesn't agree. The reason, listen, it's not a big deal, but when I look at these increases,
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out what we budgeted historically and what we've actually spent.
Mhm.
I think that's going forward for the budget committee, it would be a really good piece of information to have historically. This is what we budgeted as our expense, and this is what we actually spent, say in 2021, 2022. And so when I look at the overall budget here,
Mhm.
and I'm seeing that we got 400 expense in 2021, and we're going to close to 500 in, you know, a year later, basically. That's a huge step up. And so I was trying to,
Excuse me, you looking at the budget, or you looking at the expenditure?
I'm looking at, so what the actual expense was for 2021.
Right,
So in
So
the
if you
reported
look at-
numbers to the town, this MS 747.
right. So if you look at the actual expenditures so far year to date on the front page here,
Yeah,
for 2022, it's $315,000.
yeah.
As of October.
And that doesn't give me much comfort, because when I annualize that, I get to 380,000. So I'm in a bigger hole with that
Okay.
number.
380,000
Yeah, if I annualize,
against 457,000.
yeah,
That was the budgeted amount. We're trying to create some notion of reality that hasn't existed yet. So that's the action of budgeting. We have to, it's sort of like, let's go back to this fuel situation. The chief thinks the fuel prices are gonna go through the roof. The fuel prices are currently dropping. We looked at what's a reasonable increase for that line, just to accommodate for possible increases. And we increased it to $11,400, which is about a $200 a month increase in fuel expenses, which we think as selectmen will accommodate for any sort of spike in the prices.
yeah.
He didn't think so, but that's the budget you're looking at.
No, I totally understand that. I guess my point's more of a global point, is that it seems to me that we budgeted, for instance, in 2021, we budgeted 441,000.
Yeah.
We spent 404,000, so we were 10% over budget. That's a
Right.
pretty big number, right? I'm looking at 2022, and it looks like we're gonna come in somewhere around 380, 400,
Mm-hmm.
right, for 2022, but we budgeted and we appropriated 457,000.
Right.
So that's a $60,000 miss
So
on it.
I can answer the
Yeah,
2021, we had, people out, vacancy, that was about not quite 11,000 of that, right there. We got lucky on repairs, we saved about 10,000 there, and we ended up, so there's like 20 some odd thousand of it right there. Office supplies, and we saved a significant amount on office supplies. There's another 5,000 we didn't spend that year. It was something, and I think new equipment, we pretty much were right on. So sometimes, a vacancy, that's huge. I mean,
no, I get it, I understand that.
You know, I guess the philosophy that we're dealing with here
Yeah.
is that when the money's unspent, we don't get to keep it. It goes back into the undesignated fund balance. The only place you can use that is to offset taxes or do a capital purchase if the town voters decide they wanna do that. But if you zero out the budget, let's say we go to a actual cost basis budget, you have no room to move. Now we're looking at, let's say the fuel prices did go crazy. and it's now August and we're out of money, we have to have a special town meeting in order to raise more money. So there has to be some cushion, you know, maybe $50,000 is too much, but that's this
Yeah,
budget committee's choice about the bottom line, that's
yeah.
about what that wants to.
I guess I'm having an overall sense. I don't know how much money we have in reserve from excess appropriations in the past,
About $1 million.
so it's like 25% of our budget.
Okay, no, it isn't. It's about
Of our controllable budget.
8% of our actual costs, because we have to include in that undesignated fund balance, the county, the schools, all the taxes. So that's $12 million. We got $1 million in the account. A DRA would like to have us have 20%, which I think is absolutely unreasonable. But you have to have some cushion there in order to avoid calamity in the future, I guess. I mean, I just assume get rid of the undesignated fund balance completely every year, but
We can't do that though, you don't
Well,
know
you
what,
can
you don't have a
legally,
crystal
but-
ball.
Are the county in this, I'm sorry, you go.
No, I said you have to have a cushion.
Right.
We can't be caught short.
if the county,
But we
just,
can have a little surplus, and it goes back into the
just to
fund
address,
balance.
address the county issue, why it's included, we have no control over their budgeting process. And I've been a commissioner and a treasurer over there when they did overstate the income and understate the revenue. And they did have to have a special county meeting in August, at which point we're assessed more money here in Tuftonboro, because we have to pay our portion of that county tax. You know, if you have a school burned down, I don't know, whatever school tragedy might happen, maybe the school board has to raise more money. So all of that has to be combined into a total so that when we look at our undesignated fund balance, it accommodates for those problems as well.
Right, we know the county number ahead of time, right, before we go out.
Right, we know it now.
We know it now, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of an exception to the rule. I think the $1 million balance is probably a pretty good number in my, just as I think about, I don't have as much experience as you have, but I'm just thinking about what we really control for expenses,
Right,
right? What we control is $4 million,
right.
right? That's what the people in this room
Yeah.
control, is $4 million. So having a 25% of that, and I understand that they have to give us the number ahead of time for all those other expenses. They have to go to a special meeting, and it's a big deal. We probably should go to a special meeting, just saying. It's probably a good governance, I don't know, just throwing that out there. I just
And we
think that.
could go on all night about that, because you'll
Okay,
get
let's not.
maybe 150 people at the regular town meeting, you might get 30 people at a special town meeting. You want 30 voters to decide what you're gonna spend for money.
Well, I don't want, it's, how often do those things happen? How many,
Well,
the last
because of
20
the way
years?
we've budgeted over the last 50 years, it don't happen.
Yeah.
I don't remember a special town meeting. One, what was that?
I forget the guy's name that they hired as town administrator, but he messed something up and we had to have a special town. meeting.
Chesney.
Mick Chesney, yes.
Well,
I mean, it's well within, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I think what I'm getting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, I think that it would be helpful, I understand what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. I'm in the middle, so I'm gonna say that right out of the gate, but I think it might be helpful, and this is something that we as a budget committee could do, is, you're right, you see what was budgeted for 2021 and actually you spent, and this is just this particular budget, the transfer station, they're all different, every year. But it would be helpful as a budget committee to know what the actual expenditures were on the MS 737 to help when we do come with a new budget, because it's just another form of checks and balances that, I understand it's been done for 50 years and yada yada. It doesn't mean that it might not change a little on your side, but it also might not change a little on this side. But have those actual numbers might be more helpful all the way around. It's not necessarily maybe pinching pennies, but it might be a better way to look at the overall budgeting trends
Right.
over a 5-year period. I think that might be what you're getting at,
Yeah, I think,
generally speaking.
generally speaking, we've been over. I bet if you ran this for the last 5 years,
It is over.
we've been over by 10% every
It's
year.
over,
We've been
Historically.
it is.
Historic.
So what might be more helpful is to have those historic
Yeah.
numbers be the budget numbers as opposed to the expense numbers, or be both.
See both, so you can see you know, if the chief is, and I'm picking on him, but it's looking at each department to see if they're just conservative. If I'm him, I wanna make sure I make my numbers every month, so I'm gonna, every year, it's human nature to do that, I'm gonna wanna make sure I put enough money away. I think to make sure that you have your budget, and you wanna do that as well, it's just how much is that amount? And I'm looking at this budget here, and I'm thinking we're over 10% every year, is that the right number? I don't know, it seems a little high to me, but.
I think, again, close to 90% of my budget is salary related, personnel related. So if I have people out extended periods of time, boom, that's off my, you know, I can't do anything about that per se, but that's taking a chunk out of my budget.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, this year, again, I had the same situation, I had people out for several months this year. At some point, their leave had run out, but the selectmen had given them an unpaid leave of absence on top of that, so, yeah, they weren't getting paid, but that money's obviously saved up. Part of the savings this year also was some things I had to buy, or actually, I got grants to offset the cost of them. So that's why one of my lines is kind of, you know, weird situation where it has extra money in it right now because of the grant money, so. That's sometimes what happens too, is that, you know, I need a radio, oh, now a grant's come available.
Right.
So now it hasn't cost us, but I mean, I need the radio, whether or not the grant exists, but if the grant comes, you know, I'm gonna get it if I can.
Yeah.
I think the other part of that too, to make it clearer, is, you know, the budget, yes, I understand you could always have a special meeting, but if we don't get the special meeting, we don't do that, then we can't go beyond
That's right.
our budget. I mean, if you say we can only spend what you spent last year, well then all of a sudden, we
No,
get
I'm
it.
not saying that.
Yeah.
And I think we have $1 million in cushion, so I'm looking at the $1 million in cushion, what, how much is enough, and I'm not saying
Yeah,
that we're all.
well, the other reason, the big part for having that cushion too is we have expenses until June, the first tax bills go out in June. So if you cut that too low, didn't the county have to do tax anticipation notes at one time? Take out
They do
short-term
every-
loans,
They do every year.
cause they didn't have a
They
cushion.
don't get their tax money until December,
Right.
so every year they borrow $20 million to pay bills until.
So that's what that cushion gives us as a 6 month, you know, come June, our bank balance is down, but then we start getting money back in.
I definitely appreciate the payroll issue, that if you have to have in the budget the number to pay your people,
Right.
as if they employ 365, and if they aren't, then, but you have to have the budget. I'm gonna open up a can of worms on,
Sure.
one more can of worms, on the holiday pay.
Mhm.
In here again, wanna take a look at that. What's in this holiday pay? What specifically is in it?
That's because we don't close on holidays, we pay the officers the time that other people would get paid off.
So does
So
this
there's a
assume
town
that?
hall, right?
Yep.
It's 52 weeks in a year, let's say they have 10 holidays. They basically are getting paid for 50 weeks. They're getting paid for 52 weeks, but they work 50, cause the
Yeah.
town hall closes on Christmas.
Yeah.
It closes on Thanksgiving, it closes. We don't close the police department, we don't close, you know, emergency services don't close on holidays. So the typical way they do it is they just pay them for those days at straight rate at a later time. I mean, the other way you could do it is give them that holiday during that week. Cause, I mean, they've worked, they didn't get we don't close up shop on Christmas.
But so does this assume every officer is working on Christmas?
No, because we don't close on Christmas. Why would we not get a holiday pay? Why would we not get paid for a holiday?
So,
No, you're.
You're asking a different question.
I'm asking, yeah,
You're-
so I guess.
Rob's asking the question, is everybody working that day?
No, but nobody's working on Christmas this year either in the town hall.
No, no.
It's on Sunday.
That's not the
My question is-
question, the question is,
Is
in your
the entire
department,
force
No.
working that day?
No, it's not.
Thank you, that was the question.
But that's why everybody gets paid though, just like here. Christmas is a Sunday this year.
So I'm gonna ask the question a different way then.
Okay.
In your salary up here,
Yeah.
how many weeks, or not in your salary, when you say salary, but in your police department officer's salary,
Mm-hmm.
what's in that number? Is that 52 weeks of pay?
And they're on call time, yes.
That's 52 weeks and on time call. And then we also have holiday pay, so it's really 54 weeks. in effect.
No, that's essentially 2 weeks.
Right, but it's 52 in salary, and it's another 2 in holiday pay. Now, I understand that they would get paid if they worked on Christmas Day.
So,
They should, if they're not working on Christmas Day.
okay, wait a minute though. None of the town hall is working on Christmas Day. But do the town hall people get paid for
No,
that?
they get paid for 52 weeks.
No, do they get paid? No.
They get paid for 52 weeks. You can't, you're trying to segregate and slice and dice it into a
No,
way.
I'm saying, if we wanna get treated the same, no, let me finish my
Yep.
point. Cammy, for example. Christmas is a Sunday,
Yeah,
she's not working,
right.
does she get paid holiday?
She gets paid for.
She gets
that-
paid because Monday's closed.
Monday's a holiday.
But she's not working that holiday.
Right,
Right,
totally understood.
so she's getting paid for the
She's getting
holiday
paid.
that week.
But if you, can I just finish this one second? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Do you mind if I finish?
finish.
So she's getting paid, right? She's getting paid her total W-2. When you look at her salary,
Mhm.
she gets paid for 52 weeks.
But she's only here for 50.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay? I totally understand that. And your budget up here,
Mhm.
your police officer,
Mhm.
he's getting paid for 52 weeks, right?
Mhm.
And then you're also winning, so he's getting paid for that Christmas Day already.
No.
Yeah, he is.
He's
He's getting
paid
paid for this, only
No, he's
52
not
weeks.
getting paid twice.
There's only 52 weeks in the year.
Okay, but so we're not gonna get holidays?
You are.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are.
So, okay, if somebody's
If you
off.
work, if you
Wait,
work,
let me-
if you work that holiday, then you deserve to get paid
They're
an
not
extra
working the
day.
holiday here.
That's
What?
not-
No, that's why they're not getting paid for this,
Because they closed.
above 52 weeks. They're getting paid for 52 weeks, just like your
They're
police officer.
getting paid for 52 weeks and only here
I'm gonna,
50.
I'm gonna ask you to think about it.
I am thinking about it.
Just sit back and just
I,
think about it.
I understand this. This is how
never-
it's done almost everywhere because
Gentlemen.
we don't close. We don't close on holidays.
Yeah, there's only 52 weeks in the year. You're getting paid for
Okay, so
2
we'll shut
weeks.
down on holidays?
No, because you're getting paid to do that.
Well, what does a dump do?
And if you could close.
A lot of
if you
holidays
work
on
the hol-
Mondays,
if you
a lot
work
of
on the-
holidays on Mondays, what's the transfer
Okay,
Okay,
station?
theoretically, let me just throw a theory in here.
Yeah.
If you're getting paid 52 weeks
Mhm.
and you wanna get paid for holiday pay, designate an officer to work those holidays, and that officer will get 54 weeks pay.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So
exactly.
what does the transfer station do since a lot of Monday holidays? Do they get them?
No, they take them off as a paid holiday,
Mm-hmm.
but they paid for 52 weeks.
Yeah.
Your guys are getting
So-
paid for
so they
52
don't
weeks.
get-
Let me finish. You guys are getting paid for 52 weeks. They're getting paid for 52 weeks, right? And whether they work or not on Christmas in this budget,
Yeah?
they're getting paid for Christmas Day too. Now, if they work, they should.
Right.
If they don't work, they shouldn't get paid.
So we don't get holidays then? We don't get a
Sorry.
paid day off for a holiday?
They're not working.
They are getting a paid day off.
No, they're not.
working. If they're not working.
Why not?
Guy?
Carry on,
Guy.
guy, sorry.
My opinion, holiday pay should exist to compensate an employee who is not allowed to work during a town-accepted holiday so that they have no reduction in salary, and that should be all it is. And before I'm done being a selectman, it will be that way, or somebody's gonna have a bloody nose. Thank you.
I don't understand. Do I understand what does that mean? I don't want to know. So I'm scared to ask the question.
That means instead of having a 6-day work week, or getting paid for 6 days, when when the holiday didn't fall in your scheduled work time, you don't get paid for it.
So how does the transfer station get them? How do they get paid them?
Now they're getting just exactly as your people are, but when I'm done, they won't be.
Okay.
So Andy, I
That was
just,
my question.
so I wanted, I was, this question, we're not singling you out, this question has come before us already on other budgets. So
Yes.
that's,
But I'm
That's-
telling you, this is the way it's done. Most police departments, most
You
fire
okay?
departments, because they don't get to, we don't shut up
Yeah,
on those days.
right, and I mean, I understand what you're saying, there's been, but this is an issue that, it doesn't necessarily pertain just to a police department, if the police budget, the fire budget, it goes across the board, so this is why he's asking you that
I
question.
understand that, but I mean, it's not, that's why it's done though, because we don't get to close shop.
Okay, neither does the judiciary. The judiciary is open 52 weeks, 24 hours a day. They get 52 weeks worth of pay, that's it. And 5 weeks worth of vacation. There's no additional money for answering a search warrant call on Christmas Day. There's no additional money for answering an arrest warrant call in the middle of the night. There's no additional money for going in on Saturday and having an arraignment. None of that applies to them. That's where the dilemma lies, Chief, is you're isolating the police department and the fire department as essential services, which they are, but not playing by the same rules as other essential services. That's how the question comes up in my mind.
That is this is a policy issue.
Of course it
Right.
is. And nothing can
That
change.
we're not gonna change.
You can't
this
change
evening.
it this year either. We can't change it until we've had a number of meetings to flesh this out. We can't, spring it on them January first. I mean, we have to change the
Personnel manual.
So could I just, so when they get their pay for December 31st, let's just say it's 80 hours, I'm just trying to make it simple, it's 80 hours, right? They get paid the 80 hours, right, that they worked for that week, and I don't know how many hours they worked, but I'm saying they get paid the 80 hours as a normal week, right? And then, even if they worked only for 8 days, because they had Christmas and the day before Christmas off, whatever those two public holidays, right? They still get paid the 10 days, right? Even they work for eight days, right? And then they still get paid another 2 days, so they get paid for 12 days for working for 8 days?
I don't get,
Well, because that's what's happening here, right? Because they're getting 52 weeks paid in their salary,
right.
and they're getting another 2 weeks in vacation pay. So they're getting paid 54 weeks.
So what happens with the
No,
holidays?
okay, vacation and holiday are different.
A holiday pay. They're getting paid
Right.
52 weeks in their W-2.
Right, but
He's on
vacation-
vacation by
I'm
mistake.
sorry, I
He's
meant,
on
Oh,
vacation
I
by
mean
mistake.
holiday, yeah,
I'm sorry,
so,
'cause-
and then they're getting paid holiday pay as well. I think, to me, this is, if the policy is they're getting paid for 54 weeks, then that's in the budget, right? And that's what we have to do, and that's a policy issue for you guys to deal with, right? I just find it very broken that they would be paid 54 weeks.
And that's why it came up. I mean, I would rather
Yeah.
add 5,500 or whatever it is, what is the amount?
It's 14.
$15,000 into the payroll, because that's essentially what it is.
Right,
And calling it holiday pay, I think, is a bad policy. I mean, if
but is
It's
it
the
practical
same
thing that they get paid, is it practical, if you go back to the payroll register, they get paid for 52 weeks, plus another 2 weeks?
Right.
That's the question I have, and if that's a question, then the budget's correct. If they don't, which I find it to be difficult to understand if that would be the case, then the budget's incorrect.
No, the budget is following the budgets, the historical budgets and the employee manual. So until we address that issue, we can't change the budget. I mean, you can deduct $15,000 from your bottom line on this budget if you want. That's a choice that you have as a budget committee member.
But you're still gonna pay.
But we're still
We're
gonna
gonna still
pay
follow
until we
policy.
change the policy. Right.
So I guess I'm trying to ask whether that is the policy, are we sure that that's what's happening in the payroll?
We are positive of it, we've reviewed it, that's why this issue's
Okay.
come up.
Okay.
See,
That's why the chief is so animated about it, because he understands it's come up.
Yeah.
well, the other part of it is, what you're talking about is a lot of places, if somebody works on a holiday, they get overtime for that time, working on the holiday. And that, but we don't do that.
No, they get overtime and that's what they
I'm
get.
telling you, that's what some places do.
No, I know, they get overtime for working
And they
on,
get that too.
that's
I'm
like
telling
triple time,
I'm just telling you, that's what a lot of
because
places
right
do.
now you're at double time.
Double time, yeah, that's the problem.
Well, we're gonna take straight, and I say it's straight time.
Yeah. Should be one
Just like they get paid a day off when it's closed here, we don't get to close, so we get one paid straight time.
We can-
I wanna just change the subject just a little bit, okay? We started out, we started out on a tact of, perhaps raising a little bit money by taxation, which knowingly is gonna go into the, undesignated fund balance, okay? And I accept that to a point because I think we have to have a little bit of a cushion. And I think we're all in agreement on that. I think our job would be easier if this expenditure report could have an additional column for each year that shows the amount budgeted for that year.
Right, we talked about that.
We don't quite have that, well, you know, I hate to say words like this, but a long time ago, when I was on the budget committee, we had just started to implement that, and it got dropped somehow, okay? But it's extremely helpful to be able to see the rolling increases. If they more or less stay flat, then you have a sense that you're contributing to the unfunded fund balance in a systematic way, and it makes sense because then you have your cushion. But if it's starting to jump around and from one year to the next, then that's something that the budget committee has to look at because we're not helping ourselves. There's something wrong there, okay? So I wonder if we could just get this report.
I'm making notes.
Okay, it would be a big help, okay?
We're gonna have a meeting much earlier, and this is coming summer,
Yeah,
where we're gonna be discussing this type
All right.
of this
Yeah, you should
stuff.
have gotten copies of,
okay.
the budget going along this year, I'm sure you did.
We did, but they're hard because of the way they're done. The cash basis is almost impossible to, you know, you probably can make sense of them a lot better than we can because you've got experience in what gets paid when. We don't know that. You don't know that background if you're looking at them.
So maybe we should meet more often. You know, maybe the budget committee should meet in June.
That's my point.
I think we should have a meeting after the cycle is done.
No,
I-
no, totally wrong. Pardon me. I think what we need to do is to have this report, and we have to look at it before the budgets are started, because that's when the selectmen have to make a decision. And they have to have, if there is a potential problem, they have to have it pointed out before they start working on the budget, not after.
Let me finish my point
Okay,
then,
okay.
because you jumped me a little bit.
Yeah,
I think we should have a meeting right after this process is finished
yeah,
to go through things that we'd like to see
okay.
Right.
for next
Okay.
year's budget
Fair
ahead
enough.
of time, so
Fair
that we can get that in
So
place.
a meeting
Just
close to
so-
the hearing.
And we can bring it up at the next meeting, but
Okay,
the function of the budget committee is limited to reviewing the budget. We have all kinds of other things that we have to consider when it comes to the finances of the town. And one of those things is to have some sort of gradual or flat tax increase. And the only way to do that is to be able to moderate that with the fund balance.
right,
And if we don't, if you get into the business of driving the budget down to, let's say, a 5% cushion, if you
Yeah.
will, or
Yeah.
2% cushion,
yeah,
you're just making that much harder. And what will happen is that we went for 5 or 6 or 10 years with 1% inflation or 2% inflation. All of a sudden you get 7% inflation one year. You know, now all the numbers get driven up and you don't have anywhere to go with it. You
Well,
know,
I
you
think-
don't-
I
But
totally
to
hear you, and
Rob's
I'm
point,
not trying to change the budget. I just think they're things that will make our life easier.
To Rob's point, if we do it fairly quickly after the bond hearing, or after our budget hearing,
Budget hearing, right.
which is the 1st of February, it's still gonna be fresh in our minds,
Sure.
Mhm.
rather than waiting until June
yeah.
or the beginning of next August when it's out, and, you know. just
So,
another world.
like, the other point I wanted to make is that, we're talking about the holiday pay, and that somehow or another there has to be a way to be equitable to the employees in small departments where you just can't plan on who's gonna take a day off, who can take a day off, and in fact of the matter is, in some of these departments, there is no day off because they're open all the time. So, I think that even though we're not here to make policy, and I agree with that completely, I think it'd be a good idea if we could see the policy and at least read it, so that we know that we're operating in that realm of reality. So could we get a copy of these two policies?
Yeah, all you need to do is contact Cammy, she's got.
Well, I'm saying, maybe we can have it for the next budget meeting, okay?
Yeah, as I said, no, be a little proactive, get it from Cammy, I'm not gonna get it for you,
Okay,
it's a above my pay
I'm not
grade.
asking you to get it for me.
All right, thank you.
No, I totally agree on the whole policy thing. This is you guys' job.
And it's been in,
Is to manage, I just wanna make sure that as we budgeting it here, it reflects what the practicality of the matter is. So
Right.
that's your, yeah, so, that's your, I think one thing that is important though, is that these sheets in historical numbers agree back to what went to the public in this MS 737. And they don't right now. I went through them and, you know, you can look at your financial administration was slightly off, legal expenses way off. Legal expenses was 59,470 in these sheets, coming in 37,000 in here. General government buildings, 148,000 in here, it's 136,000 here.
so you're gonna run into, okay, just,
Yeah.
I could spend all night here, but within the next 3 weeks, we're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do about balancing budgets. So we may move money out of police and move it into transfer station, or wherever we have to do it to make the budgets work. Cause we're not gonna let the transfer station close for the last week of the month, or the last week of the year. I'm just saying hypothetically, on any number of occasions, we've had, the fire department's had a broken down fire engine that we needed to pay $20,000 to get the engine fixed. I mean, that was an unexpected expense that wasn't in their operating budget. Where do we get the money? We have to get it from the budget. So we'll look at, and you may feel uncomfortable with this, but we'll look at the total budget number expended and the total budget number approved. And if there's $200,000 sitting there, we'll start moving money around to make the budgets work if we have an occasion to.
So you
have to.
report a transfer station expense in a police department line
No,
category?
no. We move the money to the transfer station to pay the bill, and then what you'll see next year in next year's budget, that line was over by $10,000, and you can ask the question then, how did that happen?
Right, right.
You know, that's how we have to do
These
it.
numbers these numbers that we report to the town.
Yeah.
Right, these are the actual expenses for the, I'm using the, I'm gonna stop using the police phone, otherwise Chief's not
That's
gonna
all
like
right.
me here anymore.
That's all right.
You know, I'm gonna use, legal expense.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna use legal expense
Okay,
as a
legal is up
category, right?
50,000.
It was 59,470 in these sheets here, right?
Okay,
That we see here for 2021, but when the town, the actual expenses for the period ending 12/31/2021 that we report to the town was 37,471.
okay.
So one of these numbers, one of the numbers is wrong. It has to be, or we're reporting the wrong number to the town.
So what you're saying is the expense number in this budget,
This, you have it in your packet that came out today for legal expenses.
Why don't we hold this until legal?
Because
We're
it's
gonna
an
be discussing.
overall issue, I just picked out legal, that's fine, yeah. Yeah. Okay,
move far afield from the police.
all right.
And I did wanna say one thing to Gary's point, the auditors do make sure our payments match what our policy
Yeah.
says.
Well, and I don't doubt that that's true, but I just think for purposes of our discussions, we should just start out with looking at what the litany says.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to make sure too that what's actually
And
happening.
if there's any changes, it's not in our domain, but at least we can say that we're operating within the way it reads, and that's the important thing.
I'm curious why there's no holiday pay through October. So we had,
Cause we don't pay it till
They paid it
just
all
now.
at once, it
Oh.
got paid this week.
everybody
Everybody got their holiday pay this week.
Instead of adding like, the first week of January, here's an extra day for January 1st, we pay it in one check.
I get it. So everybody just gets a check for 10 days.
Yeah.
I get it.
Another part of the policy that needs to get looked at.
I understand, thank you, that makes it easy.
And I would make it known that there's a real shortage of police officers in this state. There's at least a 20% vacancy rate. State police are almost 25% vacant. Town to the north of us, they're slotted for like 12 officers, they're down to 4. recruiting and retention have become a huge issue in law enforcement, I mean nationwide, but in this state, it's become, there are towns that are paying over $20,000 to attract officers. I just heard about, one that's paying $21,000, there was another one that's paying $20,000 plus $6,000 over 3 years, so, the state police just offered up $10,000, so you need to, we're lucky, we've had four for a little while, but if somebody were to leave, we'd be up against it, trying to find somebody.
Yeah, and we're not, I don't think anybody in this committee is suggesting any issue around what's being paid. We're just trying to figure out that the policy and the budget reconcile with each other. That's really the main intent.
But taking away the holiday, from our perspective, is like saying that we're not paying you for the holidays. I'm saying from our perspective, how we look at it.
Then we
And
have
that
to,
makes it harder.
then we have to have a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring this to
Yeah.
a close.
Yeah.
These folks are not gonna generate policy, we are.
All right.
Any other questions? Have a motion on this one?
Move to approve the 2023 Town of Tewksbury budget for the police department of $496,408.
Motion, we have a second.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
That's the glass of wine, chief. That's the glass of wine.
Negative.
I'm sorry, took over this thing.
Watch out for the speed traps and carefully work around.
Yeah.
You do that, please.
Some things?
Okay, moving on. Moving on then, solid waste.
Solid waste.
Is Chris coming tonight, you know?
I don't know,
Nope.
I didn't get them, know in here,
Not
No,
in the
Jane,
window.
Jane sent him an email.
did he? Or did she, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
did he respond, Jane?
No response.
I'm concerned because I did a cookout and it's gone up $108,000 in the past 5 years. I'm still concerned with some of the salaries. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
So I have a question, Chip, you probably have the answer to this. The line item for this recycling attendant, I think that was the fellow that we were probably gonna slot in last year if that machine hadn't gotten turned down at, town meeting site.
Right,
So is the machine gonna be put up again as a warrant?
we haven't talked about warrant articles yet.
Well, we are asking for.
It's, I can't remember, do we have on this yet?
I'm sorry?
Do we put that aside on CIP? Looking for the new compact, what we're talking about.
Right, we're talking about a compact for
Yes.
the commercial waste.
But
There's nothing about the recycling.
Right,
So why are we asking for the recycling attendant?
I think on that,
I can answer that.
Okay,
We hired him already.
I know,
alright, so he's doing other things than other.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes,
so that's
thank
the
you.
answer, that's the answer, okay.
It's that simple.
Simple as that.
So will this fellow be able to handle it if the machine gets requested by the CIP?
Yeah.
Okay. That would
any
be
of
my,
them will, we're all going through the same training,
yeah,
so 2 of them are already well-trained, and this is the 3rd one.
okay,
Trained. And part of the reasoning behind, and I don't know that we have to get deeply into it, part of the reasoning behind hiring the guy was not just for the recycling, even though it didn't pass,
Mm.
but our workforce is aging. You know, we need to have a little bench up there.
yeah,
We only had 2 applicants for that job, one of whom was completely unqualified to be a town employee, so.
well, I only asked from the standpoint that
The other thing that's gonna happen is that Chris has instituted a work project at the metal recycling and the electronics recycling to cut out wiring,
Oh,
get out metals that have value to try to increase the revenue stream from those
okay,
sources.
yeah.
Do they have any so that's an industry I'm particularly familiar with. I ran a large recycling facility. What type of training or budget are they gonna need, for training on that? Because it's not as simple as just going and snipping out a piece of wire. And it's a pretty big undertaking,
Yeah,
and it needs a lot more equipment to do that.
I know that Chris is, well, he's got a training on here, but he has been talking with Natural Resource Recovery,
Yeah.
NRA. That's where he generally gets his train, some of his training from, but also from the state. And he's got money, for instance, in electronic disposal, in other lines that may lend themselves to training.
So one other question with that then, being that this is one of the only departments that actually can generate revenue, what happens when they have a load of material to sell? Does that have to get approved by the selectmen on where to sell it to, or is that autonomous within that department?
No, that's the department head's call.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they don't have to get, 3 bids for that when they sell the material or anything like that?
We haven't in the past, do you think that would be helpful?
Well, yes and no to some degree with oversight. I mean, we don't need to tie up the time now. I was just curious on the process of the town, what's required by selectmen for that, only again, because I ran a really large facility doing that, and it's a source of revenue, which again, most of the departments don't generate.
Right.
And so I just was trying to understand a little bit more as it relates to this new person, the things you're mentioning for a new compactor, generating, upgrading material, so,
The new compactor is just to relieve the pressure when the summer residents all decide they're gonna stay at camp and have a person collect their trash.
no,
I mean, it just, the way it's currently set up, the commercial collectors who pay to drop there are monopolizing one side of a compactor, or maybe the whole compactor, for a certain period of time. And we wanted to try to relieve that pressure.
okay.
And we had to buy a new compactor to replace one of the compactors that we have. So why not take the old one and put it in a separate position for the commercial haulers, who only have to press the button once as opposed to.
And so we own the compactors outright though?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we buy that from Waste Management, or?
No.
Okay,
Well,
that's
that
separate.
goes out to, that's like any other major purchase, that goes out to.
Okay, but Waste Management is our servicer though?
Right.
Okay, alright, gotcha, thank you.
So is the large increase in the budget on this due to this huge influx of extra trash? Or is this just,
Well, there was we had to negotiate with, Turnkey about the disposal of the trash. We have a contract with them that only allows for a 2% annual increase. They felt that they needed some other money in order to, be able to service us reasonably. They asked for a 5% increase plus a, fuel surcharge. What we finally agreed to was the 5% increase so that they could continue to service us. The other thing that's gone up, for instance, $10,000 is the, I'm sorry, it's more than that, C&D, bad number, but MSW has gone up because of that. C&D at 109,000, he's already very close to that the number of 105,000, so I think we directed him to charge more. Hopefully he's doing that.
Do we know, Chip and Chris, this kind of goes off of your question too, do we do anything for metrics to know if someone that's dumping at the transfer station is a Tuftonboro resident or has paid an annual fee or something like that? In other words, in Moultonboro, my company hauls for a number of residents, and Moultonboro has shut down the ability for commercial entities to drop trash at the transfer station. And it's created a whole dynamic, and part of it's because they found one company hauling from Meredith and everywhere else and dumping in Molten Road over capacity. And I'm sure we have similar problems. Is there a policy or procedure the selectmen have done, or that this department has done to help kind of quantify that? Because that probably goes a lot into the budget increases, and monitoring, how.
Okay, when I say commercial haulers, I think we may be talking about two different.
Well, I'd say commercial entities.
Yeah.
My company is a commercial entity, and I haul for, 50
Right.
different houses, but they're all in Molten Borough.
Right, but the haulers that we're dealing with here primarily have a pickup truck with high sides
Right.
that are local residents
Right.
and aren't going out of town. We have done some survey as far as who they're hauling for, because they have to be from Tuftomer to do that.
And there's a checks and balances for that?
There is, I mean, to be honest, I haven't checked on it lately, but I'm certain that we probably should.
Well, I'd be curious on that, because when I go to the transfer station, I don't think there's a way to quantify that. And I'd be curious, because that's a significant amount of volume that's then increasing all these numbers to keep up with, the flow of the trash itself, the C and D. And if we don't have a scale obviously to weigh that.
Right.
And so it's kind of a discretionary thing with whomever's meeting, somebody at the can to say, oh yeah, this is $20, this is $5. And I just was curious if there was any discussion maybe at a higher level that addresses any of that stuff.
On C and D?
Yeah,
We had a discussion about it last week.
Okay,
I mean, because it's running underwater right now
Yeah.
by about 30%.
yeah,
We had addressed it, I thought, the first of this year by increasing the rates, but obviously that isn't working. So currently he's got about $8,000 left in the C and D budget, and he's running about $9,000 a month in costs. So and that only was 9,000 up to the end of October. So he's gonna be underwater by about $8,000. So one of the parts of our discussion was to say no C and D other than a guy with a dump sticker in a house. Somebody with a pickup truck can come and dump his sheetrock scraps. But the problem that we're dealing with are these builders who come in with a, 30-foot trailer and shingles and all the rest of it because they're doing a house project.
right. A scale would help with that.
The problem, and we looked at a scale 2 years ago. Problem with the scale is amortizing it over time. I mean, it's a lot of money for $100,000 project. You end up spending $70,000 on a scale, plus you have training and you have the calibrations and all the rest of the stuff you have to go through. I mean, to have a scale, we should be open 24/7 or at least 5 days a week.
I agree.
So that you can utilize the scale to its optimum potential.
Do we have any idea of what the avoided costs are this year?
They were at $80+ thousand when last we looked 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
They had been running a little over $100,000, but I don't know that he's gonna make it to $100,000 this year.
For purposes of education, because we have 3 new members, can you just give a word on what constitutes avoided costs?
Okay, so when you go there and you have to pay a fee or whatever, MSW, or not MSW, but C&D or electronics or
Oil.
oil, that fee and also the dump sticker cost goes into the revenue stream of the transfer station. That's avoided cost. So the real operating cost, if you look at the bottom line, is probably somewhere around 200 and, less than that, 100 and, let's say, $280,000.
So is this 100,000 of the, it would be actually a broad list, it would be good when you have a department like this that has an offset to look at the expense and the offset to, see how they're moving in tandem or not, maybe they
Yeah,
don't.
which is why I wonder why you didn't get the revenue first. I don't know, Gordon made that call, I think. Did you have the revenue this early in the change too, cause
Yeah.
that drives a lot of, well, some of this, obviously.
I mean, I can see this looks like it's budgeted for 100,000 in recycling fees and income. Is that what we're talking about here?
Right, is that the revenue sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the, yeah, that's where we are. Seems like we're 75,000 right now.
80,000.
Yeah.
We have two sheets here that
Yeah,
work
blank someone.
this evening. It's a $20,000 disparity between the two.
Yeah, I saw that.
Do we know which one, whether we go 529, 434, or 529, 450?
Is it $20 discrepancy? I think all you have to do with is the sheet that's in front of you, 429, or 529, 434, and we'll just have to make it.
As otherwise pledged a $20.
I noticed she printed one later in the afternoon at 2:54 PM, so I would take the second one. I'm just guessing,
Okay.
because this one was printed at 11:12. I didn't notice that they were chewing when she handed them to me.
Yeah, they were shooting.
All right, so we'll go to, well, let's keep pockets to go to the second one.
Yeah.
When we look.
Yeah, it's probably the social security number. Because all the other ones are all zeros.
On closure monitoring, is there still some to be done?
Well, we have to monitor every year.
No, I understand that, but we're,
Oh, yeah, there's one more.
6,000.
There was a monitoring, I'm sorry. We do it in, I think, April and September, so there's another charge that's coming.
Okay.
This was done in October,
Oh,
Maybe October.
and the
Yeah,
earlier one was
10/20,
done in
yeah.
November. I think the second one is.
10/28,
Yeah,
you're right.
so that's probably just bogus. It's in the package, but I think the sheet that was done on 10/28 is the one that
all right.
you should look at.
Well, without going through line by line, trying to figure out where $20 went.
I think you'll find that if, and I'll ask Kathy, there's probably some adjustment in the social security or the Medicare.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions for Chip?
It's just a difference, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but on expended 2022 on that, again, same first packet, kind of the second one, the glass disposal, one reads 1710 and another one 1105. Is that a different thing, or? So page 2, well, they're both page 2, I suppose.
1710,
Yeah, 27, and then on that other, it was 1105.87. And the total, the grand totals are
We should do
359,
it here.
359, 144 versus 363, 834.
Jobs already.
These pages just shouldn't be in the package, your second set.
And like I said, it just,
Yeah.
Chris should be here to explain these things
Yeah.
and his discrepancies and.
yeah, I can't explain it.
No, I didn't know if one of these is the right one, and we should
But
disregard it.
generally
We can
speaking, it's
table it.
the 1710.
Okay, should I make a motion?
really-
Yeah, I mean, Chris should be here and we should have the correct one.
Can I make a motion to table this and have it reviewed?
Probably
Because the grand total too is at 363,834, and this one is 359,144. Significant enough.
But that's the operating budget's expenses,
Okay.
so it's not really, I mean, can extend this forever, but it's not really in your purview to worry about that other things that aren't. I mean, I take your point that we need to address it, but nothing in this line is gonna be voted on.
Okay, well, I will leave it up to the board and the chairman, I guess.
Well, the second set of numbers does not include the selectmen's requests.
Yeah, I think what shouldn't be in here, I think what we're gonna vote on is the 11/28.
Yeah, see, there's no
11/28.
figures
I think this-
over here, I think it's an early report
I
that
think we
just
just take these two
Throw it in there.
pages out
Yeah.
and toss them.
yeah,
So it's the second one, it's the first one that we're looking at.
exactly,
The policy on
Yeah.
34.
yeah, and that's,
Right, that one's up by $1,000, it said that the selectmen added $1,000 for fuel,
right,
so it went
Okay.
from 3,500 to 4,500.
yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Just as a point of reference, this was under budgeted last year
The fuel,
for 2021.
the fuel,
Fuel,
yeah, I mean, we spent $2,287 as of 10/28, and somebody got $2,500 budget.
yeah.
I mean,
There's a
overall,
motion on the floor, right?
I'm
So
sorry.
I'd just defer to the chairman, I guess, if we think that my point was just to the 2022 expended, the two different reports was a difference of $4,000. If we don't think that that's an issue and we're okay with the budget.
Well, I think that the first numbers are right, and that the second, the ones that are behind are probably were working copies.
Right.
And the one that has been presented at the top sheet, which is showing the selectmen's request, is the correct number, so.
And going back to the cemeteries for a second, that check that got cashed this year for last year's work, we're still working on adjusting that into last year's money, so
Right.
she's not,
Right.
whatever, however far over budget she was on her.
It was a very strange circumstance.
Yeah.
Do you wanna withdraw your motion?
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion.
So then I'll move that
Thank you.
the town of Tufton Borough 2023 budget for solid waste disposal of $529,434 as presented by the selectmen.
I'll second that.
Move in second. Any further discussion on this? Those in favor, aye? Opposed?
Me,
Jane,
Jane, I said
you
no,
got that?
sorry.
Motion carries, and moving on to 4153 legal. Now, how about it, Rob?
Sorry.
I just like to keep things within the same envelope.
Yeah, this is sort of an overall general, so the sheets that we have, that we were given, when we look, if I look at the 2021 number on here, on page, I see 59,470 is being expended. And I go to the town report. This is more New Town Alone. And I look at the legal expense and I see 37,471, so that's the town report. And the number of cases that is the fact, so financial administration is different, general government buildings is different, board expansion is slightly different, highways and streets is different. This is the one I checked. So, I think it's just, I don't know why that difference exists.
Well, on the legal, I imagine why it exists is because you got legal, which the selectmen deal with, then you got planning board legal, they have their own attorney. ZBA legal, they have their own attorney. Conservation didn't, I thought it was about $476, but that was a title work that a different attorney did. And the cemetery, I believe, has their own
We do.
attorney. So, I don't have a town report in front of me, but I imagine the legal for the selectmen on 2020 right here is $41,312.
What is that number? Which one? I got 62,000.
Yeah, 62,111.62 was the total amount of legal money spent. But in the town report, you're saying different numbers.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 2021.
Okay,
Again, that, like here we got 59,470.
59.47, okay.
Yeah, and in the town report, that number is 37,471.
This budget saying it's 20 grand more than what it's being reported in the town report.
No, it isn't though, because I think if you look further into the planning board numbers, you're gonna find $13,000 in planning.
So you're saying the line he's looking at is just strictly the selectmen's line, legal?
That's my assumption, I'm not sure, there may be something added to it, but.
So the legal for 2021, Rob, if you look at that for the selectmen's, cause there is this planning board, ZBA, conservation and cemetery.
Yeah,
44, 855.91, but you're saying that's still 39 something, right?
37,471. But I mean, it's the whole 4153 account, so I don't think
Okay.
there's not a breakout here.
Okay.
It must be.
I don't think it's in a perfect agreement of line items.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm sure.
They're combining line items, and that's why
My sole
there's
point here is
different
not to draw anybody
showing
to the
that.
ground,
Yeah.
Right,
but I just wanna be
MS
making
737
decisions
shouldn't though.
based on
There's not
correct
the same number of
information, not
line
decisions,
items.
we're not making decisions, we're making
both reports.
recommendations.
Yeah.
They have to combine
Below
some,
what's reported.
and that's
Yeah,
why
based
there's
on what's
differences.
important, that the town actually gets the
That
right
one's way under
numbers
though,
too.
that's what I'm curious,
Is
as
that
why, it's way
46.
under.
okay, I'm sorry. 37,471, and and it should be 44,855.
It should be 59.
59,470.
It's a whole category for the 4153. And if you go to the, if you go to the 2022 budget number that's on there, you'll see it's 53,350. So it incorporates all the things in here. So the 22 budget number, that's sort of when I knew I had something right. Sorry.
God.
Yeah.
Well, the MS 737, which you're reading, is governed by the State Department of Revenue Administration. I'll find out what the answer to that
Yeah.
question is. It may include some stuff and not include other things. I don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
And in this sheet here, which is most goes to the town, which is the 22 budget detail, and shows the 21, those numbers are different to what's in those sheets and in here too.
Okay, what's the number for legal in there?
Better find it, hold on.
He's done a lot of
This
reading.
is a problem with the information age.
Freedom Act.
Too much
So
information.
it is 36,902 here. So we've got three different numbers, 36,902, this is 37 something,
Is there,
and that's 52.
I'll have to look at it.
Yeah, this has everything, legal planning, legal ZBA, legal conservation.
This-
Yeah.
That mirrors what you're looking at here, the blue.
Correct, the blue, as does the other one, because it's what shows
Yeah.
for 22, it's all, they're just three different numbers for the same line.
I was just saying the breakdown on the blue is itemized,
Yeah.
but the one on the MS 737 is not.
Not.
It's the
Yes,
total. Yep.
exactly. So I think it's just important as a matter of good practice and
Yeah, I
governance.
do too,
that
but
these things all
we
agree.
have auditors that come in and create this stuff, so I
Fine.
gotta talk to them about how it's their magic. I certainly pay them enough.
Yeah.
Debits by the door, credits by the window, that's why I could never switch.
Anyway, so it would be good to know what the 37,000 was, and what we did actually spend.
Right.
Go back and look.
Okay, so for this year, cause you're not gonna change last year, we have increased the legal planning budget, they wanted 19,745. And we've set that number for the selectmen at 13,580. I'm sorry, wrong one, looking at the wrong number. We're flat at 20,000 on legal planning, flat on legal, general at 30,000. And we went down somewhere, conservation went down,
Why is planning need 20K?
because last year, it goes from year to year, it changes, but they spent $19,745 in 2020, $13,580 in 21. Their expectation is they're gonna have more legal challenges about a couple of issues. They have their own legal team to do that.
Is this due, and just to maybe having a younger staff?
No, it has to do with conflict. So, I mean, you probably went to some of those meetings with, on Farm Island, for instance. They're currently revitalizing, Ridgewood up there. So, there's a number of things that are happening in town that you have to kind of plan for perhaps conflict. And I don't think Farm Island's done,
Yeah,
so.
and utilizing the legal assistance on what the planning board already pays for is just not really sufficient to work with some of these quote-unquote conflicts. Cause some of the stuff could be, you know,
No, I'm sure they all try to mitigate it somehow without going to court, but it's still, it's still lawyer time. The other thing about the legal planning issue is that they have, in that, is that on the same line, Guy? Where they're doing a shared planner with one or two other
Yes.
communities.
It's on the same line.
So that's on, they're also.
That's adding up
Right.
more to the cost of it.
Right. So rather than trying to do all the planning in-house, they've got a part-time professional planner that they wanna try out. See how that works.
Is he in this budget? Is it in this?
it's in the legal part, the 20K.
The 20K.
And the reason to bring in a professional at this point is?
I would hope that the planning board chairman would be here, but their reasoning to us was that in generating, changes to the zoning, generating an opinion about, the rightfulness of some developers, the fee structure, is it the same as neighboring communities or larger outlying groups?
That's also the long and short of it, is I remember, I happened to be at the selectmen's meeting when Gary was talking about it. It's just a lot more complicated world
Yeah.
than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And God knows, people can't do anything anymore without calling up their lawyer. So,
Well, we're gonna run into that soon, I think, on the selectmen's end of things, so. It's more confrontational these days than it used to be, and less, likely to be settled amicably.
This is unknowable, just the reality of this.
Yeah.
It's unknowable.
Well, it's like the Farm Island issue.
Yeah.
Everybody thought when that changed hands, it was just gonna be like anything else, it's just gonna get subdivided and have some camps, but it just blew up, and both sides in that case, I think, were a little to blame for that, but.
Okay.
But for all intents and purposes, the, budget went down.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to change updates, it gives you the updates so that you can fill your notebook in with it.
You ready to make a motion? I'll make a motion.
please.
A motion that we accept line item 4153 in the amount of $52,350.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is further discussion? Those in favor, aye? Okay. And that's all we have this evening in general government buildings. There's always a adventure. Excuse me, that's editorially. Do the selectmen see each invoice that comes across that you're paying a bill on, or are you just working off of a manifest that Kathy's putting together?
We see when the checks are cut.
So you actually see that this is an invoice?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a sheet that she fills out, if it happens to be that's including reimbursement or that. sort of
Okay,
thing.
but if somebody sends you a bill, you
Absolutely.
see it.
Right.
Okay.
so that's what we're having for.
Thank you.
I'm gonna thank you too.
Don't think it too much, I'll get a big head.
That's why I make the big bucks.
Right.
So it's like a 16% increase.
It's 23,985 dollars. The major increases are in electric and heat. And also, I put stars next to this. We put out the mowing and shoveling to bid and got 2 bids or 3?
2.
2 bids. And the bid that was accepted was the curb provider, who's Corey Hunter, and the price increases were significant.
Is she gonna be doing everything?
Everything, library,
Okay.
clear,
What was the reasoning for the increases? It's being significant?
that's the price he wanted. And we could have continued to put it out for bid, but those are the only 2 bidders that we had. And
Gas is, I'm sure, a good part of that.
Yeah, that's kind of what my assumption.
yes, and this aeration, fertilization, mowing, and he says, and I have to take him at his word, that he hadn't put in his last schedule of costs or payments shoveling, and yet the shoveling got done, so I think that's added. But as I said, most of the, all of the increases for all kinds of purposes are the increases to outside maintenance and fuel and electricity.
How do you come up with the maintenance? I mean, it sounds like a random walk through life on these maintenance amounts.
Oh, the highway department maintenance?
Yeah, all of it. I mean, you know, they
Okay,
go,
let's pick one.
they bounce around. I mean, how do you come up with a budgeted number? Do people actually come and say, well, we think this is gonna be the 5 things we need to paint these 3 offices, and
Yeah,
that's what they come,
yeah.
that's based
Or
on that?
let's take townhouse maintenance.
Yeah,
Okay, we know Dolly's gonna clean it, so her cost to clean that is a number that we know. We know that we want Quality Fire and Furnace to come in and do some work on the heating system, and we have a price on that, so that's where the $800 comes in. If you look at townhouse outside maintenance, it's just shoveling and repairs, but then improvements, still at the townhouse, is the lights, so we're gonna work on the lighting there. And we haven't, and Jack Parsons brings those numbers to us.
okay.
You know, he'll have a list of things, this is one of the budgets that he weighs in on pretty heavily. The same with the fire department. Fire department improvements, furnace replacement, replace retaining wall in Melvin. Oh, Mirror Lake furnace replacement, replace the retaining wall in Melvin Village, seal coating and exterior wall repair. So that number jumped from 4,700 up to 11,650. The fire chief brought that number forward.
Okay.
It hasn't gone out to bid, if you will, but that's the numbers he's got in.
And when do you go to get a warrant article for something versus goes into the expenditure? So, you know, here we're doing a furnace replacement, for instance.
Right.
Is there a dollar value? or is it-
Generally speaking, it's $5,000. I'd have to review what the, fire chief asked for, but I guess the election was made to leave it in the operating budget as opposed to.
Yes.
We did move some things out into the, for instance, we're back up to the highway building maintenance.
Yeah,
We did move that out into a warrant, because it started to get a little excessive for a
so
little.
that's what this
large.
that's what this 5,000, this variance between you and
He
the
asked for
department head.
6 and we gave him
Yeah.
1,000.
Okay.
That and like crack filling, that's a seasonal event or a bi-seasonal event. It's not a long-term capital improvement, if you will.
Right.
And, yeah, Dearborn mowing. Actually, they had State Flat in the Central Fire Department because he's confident of that one. And as you can see on the, I'm just on the last page, if you look at Central Fire Department electric, is already $1,000 over budget because of the increases in the electric costs. Another reason why we need to solarize.
Nothing is not consistent.
So a total budget increase of, what, $23,985?
It would in some ways, this is just, because the 70% increase to somebody's point who raised this up before, it would be good on this one in particular.
It's not a 70% increase.
No, 17.
Okay, I'm
It's my,
sorry.
it's okay, it's my accent.
Okay.
Sorry. 17%, that's all I have.
Right.
So it's a 17% increase.
Yeah.
It would just be good if on a budget like this, there was a description of what the major items were that were driving it. You know,
Okay.
just because it'll make, yeah, be, yeah. You know, you look at some of these things that are just bouncing around, so all over the place, trying to figure out, you know, well, we have to do these three things at the town office, we have to do this at the fire department central, stuff like that.
Some of these numbers are a little bit shaky anyway. $2,000 worth of mulching at the library. The town didn't spend $2,000 to mulch the library, the mulch didn't go to the library. Oh, that's his proposal.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was a bill.
No.
I stand corrected. Because we paid the library paid $2,000.
Yeah, no, it's just what he.
Okay. I'm in that.
10,000 of that is just heat. I mean, there's rough numbers, just back of the envelope. You got $13,000 worth of other increases and probably 7,000 of that's electricity. So I think and then you got mowing. But I think the driver is the heat.
Energy in general.
I mean, this is also another one where, you know, we actually in 2021 spent 129, so we're 20 grand under. And it looks like this year we're gonna be pretty significantly under too. You know, 107 through November.
2021,
We spent 120.
2021 we spent 148,000.
No, that's what you got in here if you go to the report. So lower number. It's 120.
Are you still looking at that other number?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look at these numbers.
These are the wrong ones.
No,
These are the
no,
ones
just
that
the
report to
report.
the town.
This is the budget.
No, but this is not the budget, this is the actual expenditure.
Yeah, 148.
But how, okay, well, then we need to understand, because that is a big difference, right, between those two. Why in the town report is different. I think it's just,
I don't, you know, and I think when the auditors come in, you need to come in and talk to them.
no, and it's not gonna be good for me.
Well,
But I think we should just get the.
Do you want the answer?
No, we should try to get an explanation for why
Yeah.
these are different.
Yeah.
Somebody's gotta know why
okay,
they're different, that's all.
I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
Okay,
I
and you're gonna
appreciate
have to be
that.
satisfied, or you're gonna have to come see
Well,
the
who,
auditors.
I mean, who makes this one and who makes that one? What?
The auditors are
The
the
auditors
ones,
do the MS7.
it's like the trustees have to produce an MS9 and MS10.
Right.
The town, this is an MS737, so that's state of New Hampshire DRA. We need to talk to them.
So, we're on about $130,000 rate of travel right
Yeah.
141,000 to
Yeah.
spend,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah.
We didn't do too badly last year,
No.
except when we started to get into that 737 stuff. Right?
So, then, my question is the 17% increase enough?
It's a guess.
Yeah.
We can't predict what electrical or heat prices are.
Do we have it, I guess what I'm saying is there enough of a buffer in there?
Well, we know what our
Hope
heat,
so.
we know what our heat's gonna be, because we have a bid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I mean, the price of propane at least is fixed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mm,
That's what I'm trying to understand, I don't know
I
the
don't
details.
trust it to be fixed, but.
Yeah,
that's
we
all
have
right.
a fuel consumption,
Yeah, that's
Contract.
a fixed rate.
the
Electric
electric
isn't.
went up.
Right,
It
but
could
electric
stay
only
up,
changes every 6 months, I believe.
which would put us well into next year,
Hmm.
March, change it September, so. And we certainly hope so, if
And we have that undesignated fund balance that we can use if we need to.
we can't use it once we ask the voters. Because we wanna avoid having to do that.
You can't use it without asking the voters?
Right.
No.
This is the only money we get to spend,
Okay.
no more. In fact, if we take the revenue in, for instance, the transfer station, that goes right into the
Undesignated
fund
fund.
balance. It doesn't come to us to spend. Occasionally, we'll work on federal grant money, and then we don't have to ask the voters. We bought a $200,000 dump truck with that money this year
Right.
to avoid having to tax for that dump truck.
If we're short on this budget, if you're $100,000, you get to December 15th and you've got $50,000 short in the budget, you can't take it from the $1 million of
No, well, you can, as soon as you have a
a
special,
whole town vote?
special town meeting, yeah.
Oh, that's news to me.
Yeah, that's how it works. You know, you don't get to tell us, when you vote, ultimately, you're gonna vote on the bottom line of the budget, that's what you're voting on, really.
Yeah.
You don't get line item, because if you wanted to eliminate something, that's just your position. We're gonna pay the bills the way we see fit to pay the bills, but not beyond the $4 million that you give us, that's all we have.
So,
But we wouldn't get to, just to end it, we wouldn't get to the last week of December being $50,000 short. We're gonna know in September or October that we're gonna be $50,000 short.
Right.
I mean, I run the rate of travel constantly, just to figure out where we are, and making sure that, as I said, we may have to move money out of one budget into another just to make it work.
that's what I was gonna ask.
Because,
That's what they do.
yeah, and and the reason we do it, not to be subversive, is so that you get an actual readout on what that costs next year when you look at the budget. So if we took $50,000 out of the police budget and put it into the transfer station, but we actually charge the police department for it, you don't have any idea what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Right.
But, you know, transfer stations running fine, the police departments should have had more money, you know, then all sorts of questions arise,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, his line items stay constant, and then the transfer station,
It would allow you to tighten this budget up. It would be better for the taxpayers if you could use the general reserve, just as a matter of policy.
if we could what?
If you could actually access the general reserve, it would be better for the taxpayers, because you'd be more inclined to be more aggressive on the budget.
Absolutely,
Yeah, so I
absolutely.
I
We
understand.
would not have
Yeah.
to, we
I
could
get it.
not, you know, run this right down to the nickel,
Yeah,
and,
and not worry about it, because you got the reserve.
yeah,
Yeah.
that said, there has to be some checks.
Mm.
I mean, if you just wanna allow the selectmen to run the budget as best they can and dip into the trust fund whenever they want, I don't think you're looking at honest government. I mean, one of the things we've tried to avoid since a long time ago was departments spending out their budgets in December. And that happens a lot of places. And,
Use it or lose it.
yeah, you
Right.
use it or you lose it, which is really a zero-sum game. I mean,
Right.
you need to run the thing as aggressively as you can and as efficiently as you can. And if you don't spend all your money, it goes back in, but you're not threatened with not getting that next
Yeah.
year.
Right.
Yeah.
Anthony, that goes to the, what would be good, having that report that I asked for.
Yeah, you keep asking for those reports, and I'm gonna put $10,000 in here for select.
Reports,
I gotta run all these errands for you.
Chip, the money well spent.
We'll do the best we can, and I'll, hopefully have it second for you by next time, which is only next Tuesday, I think, isn't it?
Pardon me?
Yeah. That's
Yeah. Well, do we have any other questions on, general building? Okay, gonna make a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved, do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and second, further questions, Chip, on this one? All those in favor, aye? Opposed? Thank you. And that takes care of our line items for tonight. There's nothing in correspondence, anything else to do on that?
Sure. I think I've looked at the schedule that you put together for, budgeting. And you're looking for a final meeting and public hearing on February 7th.
Well, that's was pretty much the same, this is pretty much the same schedule we ran last year.
Right. I think I'd just forewarn you that we may wanna look at one more day or one more evening at some point.
One more than the one from the 31st that we,
Well, you've only got one more meeting this month, which is the 13th.
true, and then we have 3 scheduled for January.
Yeah, but we're gonna be dealing with warrant articles and the whole budget at that point in time. I think I'd like to be able to say next Monday or Tuesday when we meet on the 13th, that this is perfect, but we haven't reviewed the total budget as a selectman. We've looked at each department, and we've kind of fleshed out what sort of warrant articles we think are gonna happen. But we may wanna readjust the budget at some point in time, if we feel that it's going the wrong way.
Well,
I mean, I don't think it has, but I haven't done the totals, I've got, and I haven't fully reviewed the 21-22 or 20-21 budgets for averages. So I just like a little leeway there if we need it. We did vote on Monday not to proceed with a warrant article for the Pop Whale and Ice Rink. We feel like as much as and I'm gonna say it again, as much as I'm surprised that I agree with Knox Ledoux, we feel as though they have other avenues they can approach for asking people for money. From the public hearing till now, we've only received 3 bona fide email support letters for that motion. So there's not an overwhelming, even if we add in the 15 people that were speaking in favor of it at the public hearing, you're still only talking fewer than 20 people.
Well, the Brewster has essentially said that they'll be following that line.
And I talked to a school board member.
And the school district is,
They don't feel they're gonna.
well, they put a counteroffer back in, and they've heard nothing back from the town of Wolfboro, so they're pretty much throwing their hands up in the air.
Yeah.
And then also, they also said that they were asking Back Bay Hockey for $250,000. And I thought, as I was going through this, I was thinking to myself, well, I was thinking, if I was a Tufton Borough taxpayer that had a kiddo at Brewster and another couple of kids, maybe they played youth hockey, but the 2 younger kids also were in the school district, public schools, that's a 4-way hit.
Yeah. Well, Jack, Wimmer, spelled it out, it's $37,000 on Tufton Borough taxpayers next year.
Yes.
If the school budget voted for the school board voted for the 250,000. so you're right, if you get hit there and then you get hit for youth hockey and you, I mean, there's a lot of double dipping going on. That said, I mean, I'm in favor of them building whatever facility they want. We were presented with a pickleball notion on Monday, which
Yes.
I don't know that that's gonna go anywhere. Yeah, that's about it, I think, I'll bring forward an analysis next Monday about
Okay.
what it.
Well, as far as our meeting date, we have to have the hearing X amount of days before town meeting, correct? So you're gonna have to tell us.
No, I'm thinking sometime between the 13th and the 3rd,
Oh, okay.
you know, just in case we need to adjust some. Because on the 13th, you're gonna go through the balance of the budgets, I understand.
Yes.
So you'll be done reviewing the individual budgets. And that's a matter of how we wanna look at the total budget. Cause there are more articles, issues that we wanna bring out, but we do self-cap, if you will, how much money we're gonna spend.
So have you addressed all of your warrant
No.
articles yet?
No.
Okay, all right.
We haven't addressed any of it.
Now we have to get prices for paving and things like that, which the road agent's working on for us.
Right.
Okay.
So,
I mean, there's a couple of them we've talked about, but none that we've actually voted on.
Mhm.
And we are meeting, Zoom meeting on Friday with, architects for the police station, and hopefully he'll come up with the right number, so we'll see what happens there. We, also have been informed that there's some federal money available for docks, and possibly bridges, but docks primarily, and boat launches, that we're gonna look into, and I hope that, Tyler Phillips has a bid on doing 19 mile pier, cause we need to, that's the word I'm looking for, encumber those funds, cause I don't believe that was a open-ended warrant article that was passed on that particular project.
Okay.
And then we'll have the CIP and,
CIP will be next Wednesday night, the start of our meeting, and our meeting will be in the library instead of in here.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Yep, Tuesday, Tuesday?
You said Wednesday.
and just
Aye.
remember,
I get easily confused with what
they're just advisory.
Okay, then.
Police department's not getting too cruisy this year.
And the other thing I'm gonna, before we leave, Jane, tomorrow, when you're putting together our paperwork, would you see if you could find a copy of the town's employee manual
Okay,
and print out that section of the holiday?
I couldn't
Okay.
get it.
I have a copy in my desk.
I have one in my folder too.
Okay, so we have it, so we'll have a chance to read over that policy, so these
Okay.
will all understand
Yeah,
how that works
Yeah.
in advance, because we're gonna be talking about the fire department next week, so it's
Yeah.
one hand.
It's one policy, isn't it, for both, or is it a separate policy?
It's a townwide policy.
Townwide policy, okay.
if I may.
Make sure David's up to speed on this
Okay.
budget too, cause I had to.
It is
share
indeed a
it.
townwide policy, but
Pennies
it's so
so I guess it's
vaguely
not-
written that it's easily subject to misinterpretation, which I feel has been going on since the day it
Everything
was
we talked
written.
about tonight.
Oh,
It was just, it seemed like it
Try
was
not
just
to,
tonight.
if you have
That was missing.
anti-nausea pills, take those before you do it.
did you
That's
come
why
and
you
pick
get
up
paid
your
to
packet? Did you
Okay, then.
email the packet, and I sent an email with tonight's info.
Oh, you know what? I probably, I saw it and
So-
it went into the wrong
So
folder.
when you see one that says Jane on
So-
it, you have to, okay.
So,
Okay.
I email you the packet, and I also make a hard
Okay.
copy,
That work?
and I let you know when it's ready.
Okay. I'm
So
sorry.
for next Tuesday's meeting, tomorrow, I'm gonna email
We've been
you
doing
the
this too
packet,
long.
and then I'll let you know when you can come here and get it if you'd like to.
That's why. So
Okay.
that is my
I would
mistake. I
entertain a motion
apologize.
to adjourn then.
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
would also recommend even our experienced budget committee members to reread RSA 32. It's very informative. It tells a lot of things that might answer a couple of questions that have been brought up. It's all about budget.
The state RSA you're talking about?
Yes.